studios in New York City. This is Charlie Rose.
Robert Duvall has created some of our most memorable film characters, from Major Frank Burns in MASH and Tom Hagen in The Godfather to Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore in Apocalypse Now and Max Sledge in Tender Mercies. Through it all, Duvall has dreamed of telling the story of a character he created, the story of a Pentecostal preacher from the South. No one in Hollywood was willing to make the movie, so Duvall made it himself.
Through the valley of the shadow of death,
En el valle de la
I will
sombra,
fear no evil,
no le tendré miedo al peligro,
because I'm walking with Jesus.
porque camino con
I walk with
Jesucristo.
Jesus.
Camino con
I
Jesucristo.
talk with Jesus.
Hablo con
I walk with
Jesucristo.
Jesus.
Camino
I
con
shout with
Jesucristo.
Jesus.
Grito con
I walk with
Jesucristo.
Jesus.
Camino
I
con
stomp with
Jesucristo.
Jesus.
Pego
We
con
stomp
Jesucristo.
on the devil. We stomp on the diablo. I'm going to walk with him, stomp with him. Come on, somebody give me an amen.
New York Magazine's David Denby called The Apostle the best movie ever made about a man of God. Joining me now, writer, director, and star of The Apostle, Robert Duvall. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, sir. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
I want to talk about a lot of things, but start off, you showed this film this weekend in Washington at the White House.
Saturday night.
Saturday to the President.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of tension in the air in Washington, as everybody knows, but when we went in there, it was a most cordial atmosphere. We had a sit-down dinner. The President and the First Lady were there, and she got up and very gracious. She's a very gracious speaker, as he is. They're both very good on their feet. He's always reminded me of a very high-level Pentecostal preacher.
He could be
He's
good.
very good on his feet. And she said, I welcome you here after a very uneventful week, which, of course, everybody broke up. And then we watched the movie, and they seemed to respond to it well. And he actually said, you know, he went like this, it touched me, he said, which was really nice. And then he gave me a tidbit of a church he'd gone to years ago, and I'm going to put it in a future script that I got of a scene on it. It was a wonderful story he told me about, because he went to many of those churches. And the first church I ever went to years ago was in Hughes, Arkansas, which he knows about. And I guess when he was young and curious, he went to all those churches, and probably when he was also campaigning for governor, he, you know, went to these churches, black, white, all over.
Yeah.
And she knew the churches too. They're both very hip to the, you know, they had a lot of answers before going in, you know, and they seemed to enjoy the movie very much.
Can you tell us what the tidbit was that you might use in another movie or not?
Well, somebody might use it.
That's right.
Yeah, somebody might use it. Right. It's just a quick little image. It's terrific.
Yeah. I mean, in the South, growing up, and I grew up in the South, as you know, in North Carolina,
Yes.
and went throughout eastern North Carolina, small towns. The church and the courthouse and the schoolhouse were the places that people gathered.
Exactly.
So if you were a politician, you wanted to be where the crowd was, and that's where the crowd was.
Exactly.
You know, that and
And in the
Club.
black church in the South and elsewhere too, since the Civil War days, the black minister has been a real father figure to the people of the churches, you know, and wonderful. When my girlfriend came up from Argentina, Luciana, I started my research again 2 years ago. Once we got the money to go ahead, and we went to wonderful little churches all over Northern Virginia there, a little above where you were from,
Right.
and finally after all this research, she said, Bobby, you think we'll ever go to any white churches? Because these black preachers. In fact, the best preacher I ever saw in my life was a 96-year-old preacher from Hamilton, Virginia.
Is that right?
Reverend Isham Williams.
Now, what made him the best?
Well, he had the style of that hooping, holding that note. It was wonderful. Plus, he had a substance to him that I would say, to me, would outshine the Dalai Lama or Mahatma Gandhi. For me.
Yeah.
I mean, and I took Ulu Grossbard, the film director, who's Jewish, his wife who's Catholic, and we sat in this meeting years ago, and a year later he told me, he said, I could never forget this man. I could never get him out of my mind. He was so special. He had the substance, the spirituality, plus the style. So many of these guys on TV, they get wooed into this nouveau riche kind of thing, and they glorify the spectacle, and there doesn't seem to be substance under the spectacle.
It's more spectacle than it is.
Right.
No, it's more. I don't know. It's not soulful.
Right. I mean, you get somebody like Billy Graham, I suppose, too, and James Robinson of down in Fort Worth. They
right.
have
I know
wonderful
it.
substance to them, but when you get out in the rank and file with the Sister Jules Jernigan and the Paul Baggots and these guys, you really see black and white, whatever. They're very sincere, dedicated people.
Now, you know Johnny Youngblood, don't you?
Yes, I do.
He's a great preacher.
Oh, wonderful. Well, see, I've known Johnny Ray for years, and one Sunday when I was doing my research years ago, we went to 6 churches in Harlem in one morning. We even went to a black Coptic Pentecostal church street. It was amazing. And one of the wonderful churches up there where people from the Metropolitan Opera sing in their choir. It was wonderful, but we said we want to see a down-home preacher. So somebody in the congregation said, well, Johnny Ray Youngblood from Louisiana, he has a church in Brooklyn. It was wonderful. It's one of the great churches I've been to in America, and I've been all over.
Yeah, the best preacher I've ever heard is Gardner Taylor, who's out in Brooklyn.
Oh, I've been there too.
You've
wonderful.
Seen,
oh, yeah, I've been to his
Concord
too.
Baptist Church.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's fabulous.
He is. But my 96-year-old guy is still the best I've ever heard. But no, he's wonderful. I went to his church. He was very cordial.
Yeah. What is it about this that so grabbed your heart and soul and intensity and made you obsessive about it?
Well, when I went to this little church in Hughes, Arkansas years ago, it was a wonderful little town. And in this little town that I went for one night, all the stores were owned and run by Chinese people. It was amazing. And some of them talked like hillbillies. It was great. But when I went to this little church, I don't know, it just kind of grabbed me. As a young actor, you dream of what you might want to do. And I saw this, and I'd never seen it before in my own country. And it was something that was very special to this country, to the South, and to other parts of the country as well. I said, well, you know, as an actor, young actor looking for things to do in the future, I'd really like to play one of these guys because I've never seen it on film and never have since, except maybe in documentaries. So through the years, I tried to figure out what fictional project I could place one of these guys in that I could do.
How long has that been in the back of your head?
That's been 25 years or more.
The idea, I want to do this. I want to create a movie with a preacher, a Pentecostal preacher, at the center.
Yes. At least 25 years. When I did the off-Broadway play, The Days and Nights of B.B. Fenstermaker. Yeah. But I kept it in the back of my mind, and when we did Phil Kaufman's The Great Northfield, Minnesota Raid, I played Jesse James. I tried a little of the preaching in there because Jesse James had been the son of a minister. But, you know, it was an arbitrary thing. But through the years, I always wanted to do a full-fledged character.
Now, are you a religious man yourself?
Well, you know, I have my own beliefs. I just out of a Protestant background, and I do my own thing. I was always constantly going through the Bible through these years to put one little thing there, and I'd find something there to put in the script, and right up to the last minute I'd put this in. And, you know, so I was always looking.
But is this more than just being an object of curiosity? You find something very interesting about these people that do it, the ministers and the preachers, and you also find something admirable about those and something even profound about
when it's done well and motivated correctly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What is that? That these genuinely are people of a connection to God that cuts right through their being?
Well, I think, you know, I don't know, I think the Roman Catholics believe in going through saints, and I think these people believe in talking to God directly. And
Boy, he does it. I've never seen so much talking to God in one movie between Sonny and God.
And one Hollywood guy said, well, I don't know if we want to do this because there's too much dialogue. Yeah. And I sent word back, if you've ever known these preachers, if they do anything in their life from morning to night is talk. Yeah. And right before I started, Jesse Duplantis down, he's a preacher from Louisiana, he told me, he said, I always call him Jesus, he calls me Jesse. So I put that in the thing. I always call you Jesus, you always call me Sonny. Yeah. That literalness, which is quite wonderful, I think.
Roll tape. Here's an example from the film. The Apostle Robert Duvall plays Sonny, a Pentecostal minister. Here it is. More about the story later.
Give me a sign or something. Blow this pain out of me. Give it to me tonight, Lord God Jehovah. If you won't give me back my wife, give me peace. Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give me peace. Give me peace. I don't know who's been fooling with me, you or the devil. I don't know. And I won't even bring the human into this. He's just a mutt, so I'm not even going to bring him into it. But I'm confused. I'm mad. I love you, Lord. I love you. But I'm mad at you. I am mad at you. So deliver me tonight, Lord. What should I do? Now tell me. Should I lay hands on myself? What should I do? I know I'm a sinner and once in a while womanizer, but I'm your servant. Since I was a little boy, you brought me back from the dead. I'm your servant. What should I do? Tell me. I've always called you Jesus. You always called me Sonny. What should I do, Jesus? This is Sonny talking now. All right. All right. You let me down. Now heal this broken heart.
Hello?
You're my
It
doctor.
sounds
I
like you
can't
got
do
a
it.
wild man over there carrying on and hollering and whatever. I'm just, who
You
is
hear
that
me?
over there? Is that your son or who is that?
Oh, well, that is my son. I tell you,
Now, what
ever
should I do?
since he was a little bitty boy, sometimes talks to the Lord, and sometimes he yells at the Lord. And tonight he just happens to be yelling
I'm
at
your
him.
servant,
Well,
Lord.
could
I'm
you
your
tell him to
servant.
talk a
I'm your
little
servant
softer or
tonight.
whatever? 'Cause people
I'm
gotta
your
get their
servant
sleep
tonight,
too.
Lord.
Do you know what
I'm
time
your
it
servant
is?
tonight.
Hello?
Now I'm calling you, Jesus. Talk to Sonny. You don't talk to Sonny tonight, it seems like. But I can't get through to you.
There's a scene in which, when you open it, soon after the film opens, he's in a car, and he stops. There's been an accident.
Right.
He goes down. What's the motivation for Sonny? Why? He goes down because he wants to help the passage to God if that's where they're going.
Exactly. In the first draft, I had that in the middle. Then I put it up front because I wanted to open the movie with that, showing that he was always a good guy. It wasn't a big redemption movie. It's a guy that was always committed, always believed he had a calling, even though he had human weaknesses. I know a woman whose mother would have these premonitions at truck stops, and she would go down to cars and trucks and preach the stoppage of blood right on the spot in the scene of an accident. So I wanted to do this. I think the intent is to, it's a genuine intent. I think, if there is a passage to death, you want to help, and if there's a chance to salvage spiritually the lives of these two people, then so be it. Whatever God's will is. You see, I think that it's maybe at that moment his Protestant version of the last rites, so
exactly.
to speak.
That's exactly
but
what it was.
He said, if God's will bring you back, and the angel will be around you.
Yeah.
But so I quoted that from Ezekiel about the stoppage of blood, and it just was something that it's dramatic, but at the same time it's very, very real to these people, I think. And those things do happen. I always say anything you can concoct in your imagination, somewhere in the world happens. But I didn't concoct this into my imagination because I heard it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you tried to sell this to Hollywood, to studios, they first said too much dialogue.
Well, and not just that. I think I've heard other actors taking individual projects to these guys. It's very difficult. I think it's a patronization of actors saying, unless you're a great, great big name like Travolta or Tom Hanks, then you can get it done.
Right.
They say, oh, here's another actor with another project. And here's
Another
another
actor
actor
who
with
thinks
another
he's a
project
director
with a
or-
religious project, which is a double thing. So I mean, there was one black guy in the development deal at Columbia. He got it.
Yeah, is
But
that
others
right?
didn't. He's the only guy that got it. But it's just that, I think with agents and everybody, they don't see the obvious return of money, the commerciality of a certain project like this. So they say, well, we'll try to help you get it done. But they want it to go on the back burner, really hoping, I think, that it'll never get done because there's no money involved. So therefore, you gotta drive it forward yourself.
Well, what you did is you put up $5 million of your own money, didn't you?
Yeah, it's just about it. But it took me under. But once I committed to that, my CPA greenlit the movie, Joel Jacobson. He's so conservative, so honest. I said, well, wow, if he said this out of the blue, then let's go.
He said, we can do it.
We can do it. And I said to Robbie Carlin, my producer, well, let's go. And I all those years I'd put it on the back burner. Half of me wanted it never to happen because I was afraid of it.
Afraid that it would fail?
No, directing it, doing everything. Everybody said
that you couldn't
got to
handle
get your
all that?
rest. You got to. It's too taxing to direct, but to be in it, it's unbelievable.
And you were in almost every scene.
Yeah, and I asked the only guy that said. I asked Dennis Hopper. He said, "Hey, man, it's easy, man." I said, "It can't be easy." So, but of course, there was a part of me that really wanted to do it. It was always a now or never thing, but then it really became now or never a year and a half ago. And then when my CPA said we could go, we went. And once we went, there was no pressure on me to make my money back. It was a great experience.
No pressure to make the money back.
Not really.
Okay.
It was joyous.
Now, when did Billy Bob get involved? Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob is great. Well, I call him a hillbilly Orson Welles. He's great. Triple threat.
Yeah.
Well, I'd known him. We'd done some projects together.
Triple threat is he can act, he can write, he can direct.
Yeah.
Right.
He wants to direct in the future, like the definitive American tragedy, the Hatfields and the McCoys. Yeah. He says no New York actors are allowed to be in it. Only below the Mason-Dixon line. But I had gone with the William Morris agency, and Todd Harris, my agent, had said, well, Billy Bob wants to meet you, and we'll all get together. You may want to write something. He's a terrific writer, but I knew him as a writer first, before I knew he was such an excellent actor. And so he ended up writing something for my company, and we did, and then I was in his little project. I mean, my little part was in his big project,
Right.
Sling Blade.
Right.
And then he, in turn, when I went down to do the capture of Adolf Eichmann in Argentina, I sent him the script in long distance. He said he liked it. And I said, well, would you be in it? He said, well, he'd like to be. Because I knew he could hit it right on the head.
Yeah.
Because he was married to a black woman at one time in his life. He's at home with rednecks in Arkansas. I've seen him. So he covers the whole spectrum without judgment. So I knew he would come in and play that redneck without judging him. And he knew how to do that. Because even certain Southern actors might come in and pass a little judgment. I thought of getting a non-actor who wouldn't do that, but then I didn't know if they could meet the emotional commitment at the end of the scene. So Billy kind of fit all the demands really well.
Here's Billy Bob Thornton.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
That's real good. Kids are good. How come we call you EF? You ain't got a whole name?
Well, maybe I do, maybe I don't. How are you?
Well, I just come in to see what's going on, you know. Music is good. Them kids friends of yours, these folks here?
Well, they're just children of the Lord. Let's
Yeah.
put it that way. We're a Jesus church, and they're Jesus children.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
I'll be down.
Take your hat off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Stand here in the house of the Lord with my hat on. I didn't mean to do that.
Well, can I do anything for you?
I'm just kind of curious why they call you EF. That's all. I don't know.
Well, now, that's no concern to anybody but mine and the Lord, so if you'd like to discuss this outside, that's fine. And
Whatever you want.
yes, sir.
You gonna preach to me?
No, sir.
Billy Bob Thornton, do you two want to together make a film about Merle Haggard, or is that just you?
No, he and his partner,
Right.
Tom Epperson, have written an adaptation from a wonderful book on Merle Haggard.
Right.
My company, Butcher's Run, will produce with another company under the auspices of a Hollywood company, and we will produce it. He's written it. I'll help produce it, and we have to find a young actor to play Merle
Do you
Haggard.
have any idea who might be a good Merle
I'm
Haggard?
not sure. There's some very good young actors around, but to find that wildness and we got to look a little bit. And with some good actors, they're a little old, but maybe not. We have to see, and we have to find a director. But it's an interesting project because that whole life of Merle Haggard, building up to where he goes to prison, it's more of that than his obvious music career. It's very
the
interesting.
prison stuff, and I've
Yeah.
forgotten why he went to prison. What did he go to prison for?
Well, armed robbery, burglary.
yeah.
He busted in he thought it was 3 in the morning. He was so high, busted in to rob a country western place it was really 10 o'clock at night and everybody was there. Oh, surprise. But Merle, he's interesting. He's a really
You know him well?
Yeah, well, not well, but I
You
know
know
him
him.
through the years. Yeah, he's very talented. Yeah.
You cast Farrah in this as your wife.
Yes. I had seen Farrah on TV play,
Farrah Fawcett.
The burning bed, and then when she
Yeah,
killed her
one
own
of the best
children.
things she ever did, I think.
Stunning, I thought.
Yeah.
And I heard she was very good in Extremity, the play off-Broadway. So she's a legitimate actress and really knows how to go with the moment. And she's from Texas, so, I said, take your choice of parts. And I said, you could play both parts, so she's going to play Tootsie.
Yeah.
So then we got closer to the time when we might, she said, no, I like the other part, like she was like, blah, blah, blah. So she would play the wife. I said, okay. Then when Miranda came on, now Farrah wanted that part back. And she kept insisting.
Miranda being Miranda Richardson
Yeah.
came in to play Tootsie.
So I finally said to Robbie, tell her she either plays the wife or she's out of the movie. So she played the wife, and Miranda played Tootsie.
Was she good to work with?
Yeah, very good. Everybody was good to work with. Different styles of personality, different approaches, kind of, but everybody was good to work
It
with.
had to be hard, though. You were starring.
Yeah.
You've had Horton wrote it, didn't he?
No, I wrote it.
You wrote it.
I wrote
no,
it.
Did he do anything for you? Did he read it? He had nothing to do
read
with
it. No, he always liked the
Horton
script.
Foot is an
no,
old
he's
friend of
always,
yours.
yeah, he's always been a supporter
Since To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh yeah, and and he's always been a supporter.
So he never had anything to do with the script other than just to sort of
just to encourage. Yeah,
encouragement.
No, I wrote the whole thing. I sat down and wrote out. I did terrible in school.
Longhand?
Yeah, as a writer, I was horrible in school. I got F's and everything. I just sat down and wrote out the scenes the way I wanted them. And I wrote it in a month.
Yes.
And just wrote it out longhand.
Yeah.
And through the years, changed things here and there. And, and he responded well to it, Horton, yeah. And Ulu Grossbart and Richard Pierce responded to it. But then through the years that they all said in Francis Coppola, too, well, why don't you direct it? You understand it better than anybody. And that's what...
You went to other people to get them to direct it?
Well, yeah, we talked about it, and they responded to the script. But then they said, well, maybe you understand it better than we do, so maybe you should direct it. Which
you did 2 other films already.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons I put it on the back burner, saying, oh, I was a little, as they do in Argentina, I'm a little scared, So, but once we started,
yeah.
I wanted 12 weeks. We had 7 weeks. We finished a day early. We had 3 of those work weeks were 5-day work weeks. Every day we finished around 4 or 5. It was a lot. We had a couple of days that was some hitches, negative. But overall, it was fun. It was joy. I didn't even watch the rushes till the weekend. I made sure I got my rest, and it was not that exhausting.
It didn't overtax you.
No, it didn't. And it was like it was meant to be. It was meant to be, this film. And I say that, I say that not melodramatically, but I say it like from my heart. I really think that's true.
And how do you feel about it now that it's over, now that you've got it in the can, now that it's being seen, and now critics have raved about it on this program? Janet Maslin, David Denby, Richard Corliss.
David Denby, man, he's tough. Yeah.
Well, you heard what I said.
Yeah.
Best film ever about a man in relationship to God.
Yeah.
Does it get you where you want to go? Did it do what you wanted to do?
I think so. Yeah. I didn't know how critics would accept it. People. I always wanted it to. You always want to hope that your peers, some actors and directors, would be pleased with something you do or appreciate it. But it's wonderful what's happened, and I just hope it. October Films bought it.
They paid $6 million, I guess, for it.
5, I think. Then I got all my money back, but plus some change, and there's a chance to. And we've made a wonderful album. Yeah. People that have responded to it in the religious community, Stephen Curtis Chapman, and Johnny Cash is on it, the Carter family, and Emmylou Harris, The Sounds of Blackness. This is all on one. The only Grammy Elvis ever won was for gospel music.
Yeah.
So it's very big and very, very kind of in a nice way, gospel music, black and white.
The last time you were here, you talked about something you wanted to do, a white
and
man.
Lyle Lovett, too.
Lyle Lovett?
Oh, he sang over the closing credits, yeah.
Last time you were here, you said to me that there was something you thought about doing. I think it was called The Family Thing or something like that.
Billy
which
Bob
was a white man playing a black or something.
He finds out he's part black.
Right.
And Billy Bob wrote that, and his partner. We did that. It wasn't so successful commercially, but Richard Pierce did a nice job directing, and it turned out nicely.
I mean, you found out from your own experience, and you reflect here, this sort of, through religion, there is this connection, black-white, and that is a place where, in certain parts of America, black and white meet.
Well, my girlfriend Luciana said, you've made a movie like you would like America to be, not the way it is. I said, no, it is like this. I'm not saying it's all equal, but in the holiness churches in the South and in the North too, but since I've done my research, not in the Baptist or the other Protestant churches, there's integration. There definitely is integration. And I talked to a gentleman the other day from Louisiana who was a reporter down there that grew up in a small town of 2,000 in central Louisiana. He said when he was a boy in that small town, the Pentecostal church was integrated.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is, but it's always been there.
Someone said about you once that, I think it may have been Horton, said that Horton Foote said, Bobby has...
Yeah, we're good friends.
has an affinity for non-metropolitan types.
Right.
You think that's true?
Perhaps, yeah, I think so. But yet, the film I directed was about a gypsy boy.
And that's about in the city of New York.
City as you can get.
Right, exactly.
And, that may be true. That's why I try to do other things, We're trying to develop a film now where I play an over-the-hill player soccer coach from Scotland.
Yeah.
So that would be out of the realm of, and I've played Eichmann and Stalin. So I like to do things outside of America, not just that. but I do like to do American things, and especially, you know, the South is like below the Mason-Dixon line. Is not that they have a corner and everything, but the juxtaposition of the races, the music is interesting, the storytelling is interesting, the writing is interesting. It's an interesting mix. Maybe different from the other parts of the country, but in that interesting mix, you never tend to see it in films because it tends to be patronized through the ages of filmmaking.
Stereotypes and patronizing.
It's easier to do it that way and keep the recycling going of the education process in the United States because that's what people come to expect. If you're always looking for a hook, for instance, with a preacher, a guy that's like a charlatan, that's easier to sell tickets and sell the movie than if it's a guy that's just a human being. So I think and other parts of the country get it too, but I think the South has always gotten. I once had a driver from New York City that drove me around in a car, and he said when he was in the Army, almost consistently, guys from the middle of nowhere in the South would outscore the New York guys on the aptitude tests. So, you know, you can't sell people short. You can't sell people short.
You, talking about biographical types, did you say, and I don't know if I got this right, but did you say that Stalin, your performance in Stalin, is a performance that you're as proud of, as you thought it was as good as anything you've done?
Parts of it, not all of it, because it's hard. When you do, you know, there was some people liked it, some people didn't like it. It's like anything. But
the reason it's tough to interrupt you, you're playing evil, and you got to figure out how to play evil and at the same time make it interesting and not.
Plus, the scripts on television in miniseries can be okay, but at some point in the given 4 hours or whatever you're going to do, you end up acting a history lesson because the writing has to explain what it's about. So it's not like the top writing in a motion picture script. But no, I did say I think the scene at the end where I talk to my daughter is as good as I've done. And some people say, but I know that Nikita Mikhailkov's father, who I didn't even know was alive, who was Stalin's personal poet, who wrote their national anthem. He worked with Stalin 8 times as a young man, and he liked the movie and said I touched the soul of Stalin. So I probably would listen to him more than I would a negative critic.
Okay, what were you after in terms of that particular piece? Because, and what was the scene with the daughter about that made it interesting for you?
Well,
challenging.
It was a scene of the wife who had committed suicide with a big picture on the wall, and I made sure that picture meant something to me, so that when he related to that picture, he became so emotional he couldn't speak. Yeah. So I told Ivan Passer, I said when the camera was back, you better come in if you're coming in because it's going to happen, and it's not going to happen anymore. So get in quick if you're coming in with a tighter lens, you know. But you know, I'm not saying the whole performance, but that scene was I felt I touched on something that, and I remember what led me on was an illogical set of events or a conversation. This Armenian director said, when you play Stalin, always remember the East. It meant absolutely nothing to me till this day, but yet somehow it meant something to me.
Always remember the East.
The East. It meant nothing to me. It still doesn't, but somehow it meant something to me. Somehow something worked, whatever that meant. Yeah. Potions, poison, the East, you know.
Yeah. You also once said about Stalin, for example, that when you're playing someone that evil, who has those monstrous deeds as a part of his experience, you have to remember behavior. It's behavior that...
And find the contradictions in the guy. Yeah. Find something good about the guy. When I played Eichmann, I had to find he loved his children. He loved his children. Right. And you can't take that away from somebody, you know, I mean. And they're not serial killers, one-to-one. They may do pretty heinous things, but they do love their children.
And Eisenhower?
That's so long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a wonderful man. I mean, you know, he was a wonderful man, I think. You know, he had something spiritual about him. He had an aura about him. And I had a guy drive me. I like to talk to the drivers, and he said the guy that has the aura today he's driven is General Powell, and I enjoyed meeting General Powell. Eisenhower, it was once again it's like acting a history lesson. So you hope that 2 or 3 of the scenes work because the whole thing's not going to work as well as a good movie because the writing becomes very predictable and erudite. I mean, it's like a lesson, a history lesson.
Is the difference in great films beyond great acting and great directing, but one seminal difference between what makes really great properties, the script? I mean, you said that.
Scripts are important. Oh,
You know,
boy.
but is it more than important in a sense? I mean, you got to have those, something that a good actor can
Yeah, I
can
think
deal
so.
with. Because you
Yeah.
said the problem with miniseries is that they don't have, you don't see that many great scripts.
I don't think
that you see in a feature.
you know,
'Cause
you
there's so
can-
many of
the
them.
overall arc you can get away with more.
Yeah.
You know, like we did Lonesome Dove. I mean, to me, I said let the English play Hamlet and King Lear. I'll play Augustus McCrae. That was like I could have retired after. I mean, the guy was brilliant.
Yeah.
Somebody said, "When are you going to do another Lonesome Dove?" I said, "It takes 100 years." It's not, and there was a guy, a makeup guy.
McMurtry spoke to you.
Well, he thought I was to play the other part, but I made sure I talked my way into this part.
Yeah.
And there was a guy on the set who was a makeup guy from him who loved The Godfather, always talking about the guy's the wise guy. And I loved Lane. I said, this may be an more important project than The Godfather. What do you mean? How can you say that? Because we were working in the middle of Texas. But what I will say is that the overall arc of Lonesome Dove, you know, the defects you can get away with certain casting things or certain faults, the overall arc can erase those to a point. Well, it's something like The Godfather. The overall arc encompassed something pretty terrific. It was more of a perfect movie than Lonesome Dove. But both had big impacts culturally and kind of film-wise on this nation, I think.
Both of them did, Lonesome Dove
Very
and
much
Godfather.
So. I mean, Lonesome Dove is, I mean, I can go anywhere and people know that. I mean, even in Argentina, they say, "Oh, que tal gus," you know, like they're looped and everything. And different countries, but, you know, in Texas, toll booth operator, you know, it's like I told Ann Richards when I had breakfast with her, she's a very interesting woman. I said, you know, if I come down here and run against you as governor, I'm going to beat you. She says, well, you're right.
Hey, this was Ann Richards you talked to?
I said, I'm going to beat you. She said, well, you could, she said.
Well, you seem to be, you've never played tennis very much, and you set out to be a very good tennis player, and you did, because you hurt yourself on horseback, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Now I went back to horses.
Now you're back to horses.
Then 3 years ago, I had about the same accident Christopher Reeves had. I flipped the horse flip, and I said, well, now I got to back up off of this.
Tango.
Yeah, well, I'd rather sprain my ankle dancing tango than break my neck on a jumping horse.
But what is it you become obsessive about?
Well,
you have got to do it.
Well, Arliss Howard, a wonderful young actor, we were in Eichmann together, he called me about 4 years ago, and he said, you know, when you're a young actor coming up, what did you do between jobs to keep from going crazy, the downtime? What did you do? I said, there are three things. Hobbies, and more hobbies. I said, it keeps you off of dope, I said. And that's true. I think when you go after a hobby, you want to go out.
Yeah, but I mean, you're like that. I mean, what is people see on the screen is evidently what they same thing that is apparently at work when you pursue a hobby. I mean, you didn't just become an average tennis player. You became very good on the celebrity circuit, didn't you know?
I could beat anybody but Dabney Coleman. I couldn't beat Dabney.
Is that right,
He was
Dabney?
the best. Yeah, he played college and everything.
Yeah.
I beat him at doubles, but I haven't played much tennis because I twisted my knee, and I just so you know. But it's nice to have hobbies in downtime. You know, the older I get, I'm going to take up more fly fishing. You know?
Well, I mean, what's next after the tango?
I hope I never give the tango up. Just
Because
in a
why?
limited
I don't
way.
get it. That's because I don't know it, but I don't get it.
Well, I don't. Well, it's a personal thing, and many people can say the same, I guess. When I go to Argentina, especially in America too, but especially Argentina, and you get into Milonga, and on a nice night, because sometimes you feel self-conscious down there because they're very critical people, but they do accept some things on a certain level. But when you dance counterclockwise, tango, in a Milonga down there, in a seedy, steamy little place, I don't know, it gives you a feeling that's, I don't know what Zen is like, but it gives you a feeling that's it's not this dramatic dance that everybody thinks. It's a very quiet dance, and there's two schools of thought. They do the beautiful stage version that we see up here, but down there in the clubs, and it's fading now, but from the 40s and 50s when they had great dancers, it's like your uncles and your fathers and your mothers would dance at a wedding. It's that concept of simple movement, but not so simple. Just walk. They don't dance it; they walk it, turns, and it's just a wonderful feeling.
What's the movie you want to make?
Well, it's a movie I hopefully maybe can do in the future where it kind of connects New York and Buenos Aires through social dancing through the underworld, because you know and like a guy Petrolio, a great dancer down there, he said, in order to be a good tango dancer, you got to be a pimp, a thief, a bookie, because he worked in a bank. But it's that underworld concept, you know. And it's like Frankie Gio, a friend of mine who used to be a bouncer at Roseland. He said, in the 50s, he said, the Italians could jitterbug and the Jews could mambo, he said. You know, so that is that street level thing, you know, of people that can dance well, the people that don't have to go to dance, the people that go to Arthur Murray sometimes are not the good dancers, really. So it's a special thing, and it's a special, and I have openings down there, the same as I had in the religious community here, if and when I get to make that movie within the tango community.
You know the people,
yeah,
and you
I do.
Figured it out. The Gingerbread Man. Kenneth Branagh plays a trial lawyer, as I remember the story.
Right.
And the trial lawyer, and turns out that he has a little thing with this woman who has a crazy daddy, and you're the crazy daddy. Is that about right?
Yeah, and they try to pin it on me, but I'm really not the culprit.
Okay, roll tape. Here it is.
You arrest me based on her pack of lies. Now you appoint me a lawyer who's grossly incompetent and inexperienced. He probably cheated his way through law school. On top of that, you give me 2 doctors to examine me. They come into the room, look at my eyes, and then they rush out. Now, the first one wanted me to name the first 5 presidents in order. Now, can you do that, Judge? Let me hear you. Name me the first 5 presidents of the United States. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, John Kennedy.
Mr. Dawes, Mr. Dawes,
You can't
I don't
do it.
answer
You
questions,
can't
I
do it.
answer.
They ought to ship you out for 90 days.
No, we don't have to hear this. This man's terrorizing his own daughter. He needs to be treated. It's as simple as that.
That's enough.
Now, why are you doing a cameo role in The Gingerbread Man?
Well, Altman asked me if I would, and I thought, before I hang it up and he hangs it up, I'd like to work with him again.
Now,
I worked with him way back, and he's great to work with.
What was the first film?
Well, The Countdown was an astronaut film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and then I did MASH with him.
You've never worked with Martin Scorsese?
Never did.
You want to?
If the opportunity arose.
But was there anybody you're dying to work with? I mean, whether it's an actor or an actress or a director. I mean, can I make a deal here tonight?
Yeah, I don't know if there is. I mean, maybe. Sometimes in the past, I wanted to work with a certain actor, and it backfired. It didn't work out well.
In other words, you wanted to work with somebody, and then when you once met him and got on the stage with him, it wasn't...
Boy, I won't name names.
I was going to say, everybody wants to know.
It could be insufferable. But there's some directors I wouldn't mind working with. Not that I will. I mean, I like some of those European directors a lot. Kenneth Loach. I asked him to come over and direct Tender Mercies, but he wouldn't come over. He just stays over there.
How do you feel about Tender Mercies? Because you won an Oscar for that.
I enjoy doing Horton Foote's movies. If I never had anything but his collected works that I did as a career, would have been a wonderful.
To Kill a Mockingbird, Tender Mercies.
Tomorrow. The Convicts.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful project. He's a wonderful writer to do his works, So yeah, Tender Mercies was nice. It was a nice experience,
You know, you haven't spoken my name once since I've been here. Don't you know my name?
Sure, I know your name. I just kind of been figuring out to myself what I ought to call you. When you were a little girl, I used to call you Sister. I started to call you that this time when I saw you, but I didn't know if it would mean anything to you or not, or if you'd remember me doing that.
There was a song you used to sing to me when I was little, I think. It was something about a dove. Mama says she never heard you sing it to me. But I think it went something about, on the wings of a snow-white dove, he sends his something love.
I don't remember that. I don't.
Let me just go through these, because it's an important part of your history. Just tell me how you feel about the experience, Godfather.
When I was in Godfather 1, what they did was they $80,000, $100,000 for a screen test they wanted. Well, they had the screen test. It was a wasted money because Francis ended up with the cast he wanted anyway, that he originally wanted. And during Godfather 1...
They didn't want him to have Al in the beginning, did they?
No. And Jimmy wanted this. It was strange. And they had a standby director on the set physically in case they had to fire him. And that standby director's best friend was the first AD. So I gained a lot of confidence for Francis working under those conditions. And, everybody says Paramount took the credit. That film could have been done at Disney or any studio, Roger Corman or anybody, as long as Francis was directing. And in the middle of Godfather 1, I think others, as well as myself, we sensed, hey, this is something that's going to really hit.
This is about America.
This is something, that's really going to be a good film. And you felt that, And then Godfather 2 was terrific, too, but it wasn't as much fun because Jimmy Caan wasn't on the film. Because Jimmy is Brando. Everybody loves Jimmy. he lifts things. You know?
He tells a great story about you.
Oh, he's
you know,
great
you
to
heard
work
this.
with.
He tells a story about. I think he tells a story, but I'm almost sure. I'm not sure what movie it's about. But a director comes on and he says to you, "What I want you to do is I want you to take a couple of steps, stop, and smile." You remember this at all?
No, I mean, he may be elaborating this a little bit, but go ahead.
The story is that you silently just walked off the set, as if this guy was trying to tell you, I mean, what to do, and this was basic for you. You remember that at all?
I don't remember that, but Jimmy, you know how he stands with his shoulders, and he could have told me that story. I do remember saying to one director, "Look, why don't you put on my costume and play my part, and I'll go back to England and live." And I remember that, but you know, it was great working with Francis. I gained a lot of respect for him. It was a good experience, The Godfather. Wonderful.
I just want to see that. Roll tape, here it is.
Sent by a friend of Johnny Fontaine. This friend is my client. Would give his undying friendship to Mr. Walsh. If Mr. Walsh would grant us a small favor.
Walsh is listening.
Give Johnny the part in that new war film you're starting next week.
And, what favor would your friend grant, Mr. Walsh?
You're going to have some union problems. My client could make them disappear. Also, one of your top stars has just moved from marijuana to heroin.
Are you trying to muscle me?
Absolutely
Now,
not.
listen to me, you smooth-talking son of a bitch. Let me lay it on the line for you and your boss, whoever he is. Johnny Fontaine will never get that movie. I don't care how many Dago, Guinea, Wok, Greaseball, Goombas come out of the woodwork.
I'm German-Irish.
Well, let me tell you something, my Kraut Mick friend. I'm going to make so much trouble for you, you won't know what hit
Mr.
you.
Walsh, I'm a lawyer. I have not threatened you.
I know almost every big lawyer in New York. Who the hell are you?
I have a special practice. I handle one client. Now, you have my number. I'll wait for your call. By the way, I admire your pictures very much.
I enjoyed that part.
You enjoyed that part of that scene?
The part, the character, yeah.
Did you model it? Here's where you were so dedicated to research and finding something.
Yeah.
Peg.
Yeah.
Finding the soul of a character. Where'd you find that?
Well, I didn't do a lot of research. I had a friend of mine from East Harlem that knew one of the big guys up there, and he said that that guy had a gopher. It's almost like a Secret Service man. He had a gopher that would light cigarettes for this guy. It was almost, he'd hold the chair. I mean, it was a very coveted position. And yet, if anybody made fun of that fact that you were like a gopher, you'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
So I remembered that, and I remembered like a Secret Service, always looking to take care of this guy, Brando.
Brando was brilliant in that.
Yeah, he was great to work with. We all
what?
It was at one time, I think he probably, for most American actors, younger, he was like a hero, very much so, yeah. You know, we all respected him. Yeah.
Disappointed in the way it's turned out, in the sense that he's...
Well, I mean, he wasted a wonderful talent by, you know, getting fat and minimizing the business, and wouldn't let his children, I guess that's what I've heard, saying that it's not a good profession. I think it's a fine profession to be an actor. What's wrong with it? You know, you bring joy to other people. You know, it's nice. I don't get it. So
you think more of that than it's just nice. I mean,
I don't get it with him, but that's his business, you know.
I've said that to him. I've talked to him about being on the program because he watches the program. And I said, I don't want to do this if you have contempt for your work.
Yeah.
What is it about acting? And he said, no, I don't have contempt for him. But
right, I don't know.
Because acting means what to you?
Well, it's a style, it's a lifestyle, you know. And I said the same thing one day that John Travolta said. I exist very nicely between the words action and cut. I feel when it's going well, I feel good. I feel like we do now, this natural, hopefully.
Yeah.
And you know, I enjoy showing characters and trying to do them as truthfully as I can, and you know, try to out of yourself, like Sanford Meisner used to say, it's like making a chair. You make a good chair, so you make a nice character out of yourself. Yeah. You know, so you know, it's interesting. It's a wonderful profession, I think, and I'm fortunate to be doing what I like to do. I mean. And being paid well for it and having a wonderful lifestyle, I'm very fortunate. Sometimes we complain even with that, but actors tend to do that, and human nature tends to do that. But, you know, even with all the complaints, it's a wonderful profession that I enjoy. I mean, I'm proud of it.
Great Santini.
Yeah, I enjoy doing that. I think
your father was a rear admiral.
Yeah, he
moved from San Diego to Annapolis.
Yeah, he was from Northern Virginia. They were Southerners, but pro-Union. They named my grandfather Abraham Lincoln Duvall. There were many pockets of Southerners who were not for secession.
Yeah.
He went to the Naval.
Western North Carolina had some of them.
The hills of Tennessee.
Right. Same place. Those two places come together.
Yeah. But my father went to the Naval Academy when he was 16 years old, and he was a career naval officer. But he was more of a quiet guy, a brooder. The great Santini, in the novel, Pat Conroy says, when the commanding officer of the family comes home, there's an invisible passing of the mantle to run the family that goes back to the career officer when he comes home for his leave of his shore leave or whatever. There was never that passing of the mantle in my family. My mother ran the show all the time. But he was more of a quiet. Bull Meacham was more outgoing.
Yeah. Roll tape. Here it is.
I've listened to you bellyache about moving to this new town. This said bellyaching will end as of 15-30 hours. Will not affect the morale of the squadron henceforth. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, sir.
I know it's rough to leave your friends and move every year. But you are Marine kids and can chew nails while other kids are sucking cotton candy. And you're Meacham's. Meacham's a thoroughbred, a winner all the way. Gets the best grades, wins the most awards, and excels in sports. Meacham never gives up. I want you hogs to let this burg know you're here. I want these crackers to wake up and wonder what the hell blew into town. Okay, hogs, by nightfall I want this camp in inspection order. Do you read me loud and clear?
Yes, sir. Sir.
I said, do you read me loud and clear?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding.
One more. Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, well, it was written for a bigger stature guy. I don't know. I think of a bigger stature. I think maybe they had offered it to Gene Hackman. I think he turned it down, actually. So,
an old friend of yours.
Yeah,
from
old
early
friend.
New York
yeah,
acting
wonderful
career.
actor. And, once people make it, Dustin Hoff, all of us, once you make it, you never see each other. It's a strangely fickle business.
And you were together in New York, though, trying to find it at the same time.
Exactly, idealizing, going for jobs and everything. But then I asked Francis, said, look, give me a shot, and I'll only ask once. And then he gave me the part, and it was a nice part.
No, Gene didn't do it. It wasn't.
I think he turned it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was meant for a bigger guy. So and it was nice working in the Philippines, and I worked for 6 weeks, and then I went away for 6 months and came back for 3 more weeks.
Where did you find that character? What was the...
Well, there was a guy over there that told me about the air cavalry, because in the writing it wasn't there. All the guys, it was a carryover from the air cavalry, from the horse cavalry of the last century, and also from the tanks that Patton commanded in the Second World War were like the cavalry division, since the cavalry became extinct. So here was the air cavalry. And my character, I found out they wore hats, spurs, but all the officers did. But there's a Fort Hood, I think there's a museum to these guys, when they flew the helicopters. And I understand there was a lot of marijuana, there was a lot of things over there that people turned the other way, and they did crazy things. And some people say it didn't exist, but I talked to people that said it.
It was also crazy set there, too, wasn't it? Because of everything that was going on with Francis' wife. We did a documentary about it.
Oh, yeah.
And you had Marlon, and you had...
Yeah, Marlon came down his baby blue Mercedes in the jungle. I missed the part with Marlon, and then
you weren't shooting at the same time?
No, and then Dennis was whacked out half the time, Dennis Hopper.
And what's his name? Martin had a heart attack, didn't he, or something?
Yeah, he did.
On the set?
Yeah, he used to run and keep in shape, but then he smoked a lot, so there's a contradiction there. So, and the women of the community very proudly and very beautifully made us wonderful bamboo hooches as dressing rooms, and they were beautiful, and they were very proud of them. So we'd sit in there, and I would listen to Coppola rant and rave. He had more temper tantrums than the actors. He's really great to work with, and it was just at the end of each day we'd go back to the town. We were staying in individual homes where they put us up. We'd jump off the jeeps and we'd body surf for an hour, and then we'd go in and we'd eat. It was really nice working out there, and it was really out in the boondocks. There was one Roman Catholic priest from Queens who took care of that whole community in the middle of nowhere, and it was a wonderful 6 weeks, and then 3 weeks later.
What's his genius, Francis?
Francis, I think he's a wonderful storyteller. I think Luciana, my girlfriend, said he is the biggest dreamer she has ever seen in her lifetime. And he is a big dreamer.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, giant dreams.
Yeah.
And he made great movies at one time.
The great things come from big dreams.
Yeah, and another friend of mine said, look, you may not agree with these movies now, but he's a sleeping giant. And any minute he can wake up and look out. He can make another great masterpiece.
Yeah.
But he tells stories in a big way. You go up and visit his place. He said, Dean Tavares, who did all
up in Northern California.
Yeah, did all the artwork.
There's a golf course and a winery and whatever.
And one staircase he built, the Tavares brothers built. The one staircase in the winery cost $1 million. I mean, what is this?
Exactly. What's going on, Frank?
Yeah, I know.
Here is a scene from Apocalypse Now. Take a look.
Smell that? You smell that? Napalm, son. Nothing else in the world smells like that. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. You know, one time we had a hail bomb for 12 hours, and when it was all over, I walked up. We didn't find one of them, not one stinking dink body. Smell, you know that gasoline smell, the whole hill. Smells like victory.
Smells like victory.
Yeah. It's funny. There was a kid named Jimmy Keene.
Yeah.
And he had a small part, and he had to stay 10 months because they wouldn't take him back in the hiatus, and he had one line. And he said, oh, Mr. Duvall, Mr. Duvall. And I made him call me Mr. Duvall so we'd get the character thing. And he used to watch me rehearse then. And the last dress rehearsal before we filmed, I said, it smells like it, smells like it. And we were, victory! We were all imitating Brando. You know? So now Jimmy Keene started imitating Brando. So when they wanted to do the censored version of The Godfather, Brando wanted $100,000 for 6 lines for the censored version on TV. So they got Jimmy Keene from Buffalo for $200, and he did Brando. That's where we started practicing. Oh, victory! And Jimmy Kahn always used to say Brando when he laughs. He goes. So Brando's been. So Jimmy Keene did him for $200. You know.
Where do you go from here? What's next?
Well, I'm finishing up a movie with John Travolta and Steve Zalian's directing, and Scott Rudin. It's a wonderful project, on that Woburn, Massachusetts thing about all the children that died from the bad water to civil action is called the book.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
right,
and it's a wonderful.
Written by Jonathan.
Yeah. Hare, and it's no, not Hare. I forget the guy's last name. Yeah, so that's right. And he's a wonderful storyteller and good director. Steve Zalian's doing a good job, and Travolta's great to work with. Great guy, wonderful actor. And it's the second time I work with him. He's just a lovely guy to work with. And then after that, I've always had a great career as a hired hand, made a good living. But I still want to work if a great project comes along. But I want to put a little bit on the side, and I want to do more projects.
Like The Apostle.
Yeah, I do.
Is there another idea that's there?
Yeah, there is. There's the tango thing, and then there's a thing I want to do. I've had in the back of my mind for years. I wrote the outline, like a return of the Grapes of Wrath. A man brings his father back to Oklahoma for a certain project from Bakersfield for like an anniversary, but he really brings him back to die. So I may want to finish writing that and direct that someday. And also there's a film that we're trying to work on, and maybe direct a film in a foreign language in northern Argentina, and send it back as a foreign film.
Man, you love Argentina, don't you?
Yeah, I like it a lot down there. Yeah, it's terrific. It's a wonderful city, Buenos Aires. I don't know if you've been there. It's terrific. It's right at the top of the list now. It's very special.
Yeah. And your lady's from?
She's from Argentina, from northern, but from Buenos Aires as well. Yes.
You and I were born on the same day. January 5th.
So was she.
Is that right?
So was she. A few generations apart.
Yeah, we were different times.
Yeah. But no, January 5th.
You bet. You bet.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Very much.
Thank you, sir.
The Apostle Robert Duvall. Time magazine has a story, the January 26th edition, which is on the newsstand before today, called Divine Inspiration. Robert Duvall as the Apostle tops a dynamic career. God and Oscar may be on his side. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.